So this is a complete guide to applying Singapore citizenship. Let's proceed ahead, and in this presentation I am going to cover these 17 points, starting from what is the implication of changing citizenship up to what to do in case of rejection. So I will not go through this list entirely. You can read it and pause if you want. But what I have done is I have made specific chapters on this YouTube video. So if there is a specific topic that is of interest to you, you can directly navigate to it and listen to it. So let's move ahead. And first of all, let's understand what does new citizenship means. Now, if you are thinking or planning to apply for Singapore citizenship, you are most probably somebody who came to Singapore as a foreigner, maybe on employment pass or S pass, later on acquired permanent residency status and now are thinking of applying for citizenship. Another possibility is that you are from a family sponsor scheme whereby you got married to a Singaporean and then thinking of applying citizenship. So acquiring new citizenship is different from acquiring PR or any other visa in Singapore. Typically when you get PR or any other work permit, you still continue to be citizen of the country in which you were born or whichever is your home country. So that relationship is not impacted. But when you apply for citizenship, it means a person who is a PR or otherwise eligible applies for Singapore citizenship and gives up his previous citizenship. So suppose you are a citizen of, let's say, Canada or India or Philippines, your previous citizenship and passport will get cancelled and now you will become citizen of Singapore and you will get a passport of Singapore. So this is the main difference compared to any other visa. Now since you are going to give up your citizenship of existing country, the decision needs careful thinking because you can have some implications thereof. So let's now understand how citizenship differs from obtaining PR. So as I mentioned, when you obtain a PR in Singapore, you are still a citizen of your home country. For example, if you are from India and you obtain a PR in Singapore, you still continue to be citizen of India. Your rights in India are not impacted, your property ownership is not impacted, anything that is related to India and your bank accounts and all that is not impacted when you obtain a PR. But when you obtain a citizenship, there can be an impact on it. PR technically is only a long-term visa with lot of benefits. So when you obtain a PR, you are treated at par with citizen, but you are still not a citizen. You can start a business in Singapore, you can stay in Singapore without any income, you can do multiple jobs or you can have multiple ventures in Singapore. All that is allowed, but still it is a kind of a long-term visa. So as I mentioned, since the process involves giving up citizenship of the country in which you were born or raised, the decision needs to be done carefully. So now let's understand why you should apply for Singapore citizenship or why you should become a Singapore citizen. Now I am going to touch many points in this section, but before I start this section, I want to give a little disclaimer that in my opinion, the criteria or the decision for obtaining citizenship should be primarily based on one's sense of belonging to Singapore and their commitment to national solidarity. On the internet, you will find many individuals highlight advantages like easier travel and reduced educational expenses. I personally do not entirely align with these perspectives. I don't believe that for these kind of petty commercial considerations you should become citizen. I don't support that. But since this video aims at the comprehensive guide and since those points are relevant for some people, it is necessary for me to cover in this video. So if you watch this video on internet, please don't troll this video saying that somebody is promoting taking up citizenship for some petty reasons. My job here is to cover everything relevant possible and then let people decide how they want to decide about their citizenship. So let's proceed. So the first section of point, general principles as to why you should apply or become Singapore citizen is very straightforward. For example, you have stayed here for a long time and you believe that you belong to Singapore and you like Singapore. So if you have stayed here, let's say for 10, 15 years, you like it and you feel it like home, then obviously you should apply or become a Singapore citizen. So if you want to permanently settle in Singapore, if you really see that even post retirement you are likely to be here, in that case, you should apply for Singapore citizenship. This is in general as a principal rule. Now coming to the specific, a second set of reasons. Now this set of reasons comes from the limitations of PR. So because PR is limited, many people want to take citizenship and the points thereof are as follows. So the first point thereof is PR itself is not permanent. If you are a permanent resident, you know that you need to get a re-entry permit. And re-entry permit is normally valid only for 5 years. Previously, ICA used to give re-entry permit for 10 years, but now they have stopped. And in this 5 years period, you are expected to be economically active. So normally the practice is after the retirement, your PR will still be, not PR, re-entry permit will still be renewed and you will not have any problem. But we don't know how in future this will happen. If you really observe the population scene of Singapore, you will notice that in last few years policies have changed significantly. So what has been a practice maybe 10 years back is not necessarily what will be followed by authorities in future. For example, it is quite possible that they might say that after retirement, maybe your PR will get renewed only for once or twice, and after that you should prepare to go back to your home country. So these kind of possibilities are there. And since PR is not permanent, if you really want to settle here permanently, the obviously thing to consider is obtaining Singapore citizenship. The next point is if you have reduced income, it can have impact on your renewability of a re-entry permit. One of the criteria for re-entry permit is that you must be economically active, must have contributed to CPF, and must have paid taxes during the last 1 or 2 years of your permanent residency, that 5 years period. Now it may happen, for example, some people start their business after obtaining PR. If it is a new business, it is quite likely that your income for few years can be on a lower side. Because in a new business, people often take only limited amount out of business. So this may appear to be a reduced income, and if you are on a PR, your re-entry permit may be issued only for 1 or 2 years. And that can be risky for you. The next possibility is that if you are on a PR and if you stay away from Singapore for a few years, you can lose your PR. For example, I have seen in many cases people who work in multinational companies are often deputed to work in other countries. For example, while you are on a Singapore job, company may post you in Australia. I have also seen many cases, people in that case let their family live in Singapore and then they will go and work in this foreign country. But the problem is that once you work in Australia or any other country for that matter, you won't be filing your income tax return in Singapore because your salaried income will be taxed in the country in which you work. And as a result, you will appear to be without income, which may result into approval of re-entry permit only for 1 or 2 years, or they may not approve it at all, resulting into loss of PR. The next point is that children need to apply PR on their own merits after the age of 21. So PR normally is applied or renewed, a re-entry permit, as a family. So if you have young children till the age of 21, there is no problem. But after the age of 21, children will have to apply PR on their own merits. So if your children are already in education in Singapore, it's not a problem. If they are going to university or college in Singapore, their re-entry permit will normally be renewed for 1 or 2 years. And after that, if they get a job, again it will be renewed for few years. So this normally is not a problem. But if your children decide to go for university, let's say in UK or USA, then in that case they are going to lose their PR status because they are not in Singapore, they are not taking any education, and they cannot also be included for the renewal of PR along with their parents. So this is one of the important points. Obviously, you do not want to have an impact on their PR or status in Singapore or their ability to visit Singapore and meet their friends, relatives, and maybe work here. The next point is if you plan to buy a property, it is still costly with ABSD because PR still have some additional buyer stamp duty they need to pay while buying the property. And the last point on this slide is that family PR still depends on the main applicant. So when it comes to the renewal of a family PR, let's say there is a family of 4 people, husband, wife, and 2 children. So their renewability depends upon main applicant in the sense if main applicant's income or financial ability is limited, the PR may not get renewed or the re-entry permit may be renewed only for 1 or 2 years. So if something bad happens to the main applicant, the entire family has a problem. Now, in addition to this, there are some other benefits of Singapore citizenship, which I will just list it and not go through each and every one in detail because I guess from the name itself you can identify. So the first point is obviously we know Singapore has a strong passport. The travel is easy. Going to another country is easy. If you want to go for work in some other country, it is easy. For example, Singapore passport get a separate kind of H1B visa in USA. Similarly, Singapore passport holders can work in Australia easily, which possibly with your previous passport would not have been easy. The next thing is for children who are Singapore citizens, lot of educational subsidies and scholarships are available, which are not available even for PR students. Singapore citizen children get priority admission to reputed schools. So if you are going for primary school education, you know there are some top schools which are rated highly. So it is easier for Singapore citizen children to get admission in these schools compared to others. Singapore citizens also get lot of medical subsidies. So if you happen to undergo any medical procedure in hospitals in Singapore, and if you choose to stay in Ward C, the cost will be significantly subsidized. And then there can be other schemes that government announces from time to time which can benefit you. For example, during the GST rise, there can be some GST voucher scheme, or during COVID, there was some scheme to help Singapore families, Singapore citizen families. So these kind of benefits also you can get. Okay, so now having discussed the benefits of Singapore citizenship, let's move our attention to the reasons why you may not want to apply for Singapore citizenship. So the first point is about national service for children. Now, as we know, all second generation male children are required to serve national service for a period of 2 years. So that means you have to go for first 4 or 5 months for basic military training, and after that, rest of the period they will have to work in some government department like traffic police, cyber warfare, or even military for a period of close to 18 months or whatever is the remainder period. Personally, I feel that this is a very good initiative because children learn a lot of discipline and development in that period. But many people don't want this kind of service for their children. As a PR child, also, you have a liability to serve this national service. But only thing is that in case of PR, the child has an option to give up that permanent residency, go out of Singapore, and avoid that national service. So what happens is many people, because they don't want their children to go for this national service, they don't go for Singapore citizenship. The next reason is that loss of home country benefits. Now, as you have seen, when you obtain Singapore citizenship, because you have to keep it in mind, Singapore citizenship does not allow dual citizenship. That means you have to give up the citizenship of your country of origin. And if you give that up, there can be loss of home country benefits. For example, if you are from some northern European countries which offers pensions and dole and unemployment benefits to you, and if you give that country's citizenship, obviously those benefits will not be any more available to you. Similarly, if you are a citizen of India and if you plan to buy agricultural land, then in that case, as a Singapore citizen, it is not going to be possible. You need to be citizen of India to buy the agricultural land. The next point I just now spoke is there is no dual citizenship. So even if your home country allows dual citizenship, for example, if you are a citizen of UK and UK laws allow to obtain another citizenship while keeping UK citizenship, that is not allowed by Singapore law. So Singapore law will force you to give up your other citizenship. The next point is CPF withdrawal is not possible as a lump sum amount. So if you are a PR and stayed here for a long time, and if there is a big amount in your CPF account, and if you give up PR and decide to go back to your home country, then in that case you can withdraw that amount. Permanent resident can withdraw the CPF amount and take it back. But that option is not available for Singapore citizens, because you are not going to go away permanently to some other country. You are still going to continue as a Singapore citizen. Even if you decide to relocate back to your home country and stay there, you will not stop being Singapore citizen. So CPF withdrawal is not possible in that case. And the last point is cost of living is still high. So when you decide to retire in Singapore, obtain Singapore citizenship, you will have to factor in that cost. A typical family of two, husband and wife, will require at least $5,000 to $6,000 at minimum if they already own the property. If you are still on rental or you are paying mortgage, then in that case this amount can even be high. So now on this slide, let's understand Singapore citizenship approval statistics. So this will give us some idea as to how many people are applying and how things are shaping up. So this is based on 2021 figures which are available. Now keep it in mind, all these figures are not released by ICA. ICA gives a limited information, and some of this information we have to logically deduce. So in 2021, 40,000 applications were filed for citizenship. Now this 40,000 application does not mean that 40,000 people applied for citizenship, because some of these applications are family applications, or rather majority of them are family applications. And obviously a family application may consist of spouse and one or two children. So the number of people included that we have calculated based on our understanding of this scenario is 110,000. So 110,000 PRs typically applied for citizenship, but the places those were released by ICA in that year were only 20,000. So if you divide this 20,000 by 110,000, the percentage approval rate comes to be approximately 18% only. So as you can see, the approval rate is not that great. Roughly 1 in 5 applicants is given the citizenship. So 1 in 5 applicants get the approval for citizenship, and obviously the rate is then low. So let's move on to the next slide. And here we will understand some specialities of citizenship application. If you are watching this video you have definitely done at least an employment pass or permanent residency application in Singapore. But citizenship application has its own specialities, and I will list four specialities over here. So the first specialty is that the process is a complex process and lot of details are required from your side. So when you go for filing the citizenship application, you will be surprised of how much information ICA needs about you. So right from your birthplace, your parent details, your sibling details, places where you have stayed, companies where you have worked, all this information will be required, and this will be required for every adult in your application. So if it is a family application for husband and wife, for both this information will be required. For children, obviously, limited information is required, but still the details required are quite extensive. The next point is citizenship normally takes 2 years for approval. So after you have filed the application, ICA will take 18 months to 2 years. It is a long time. The next visa, that is the PR, is normally processed in 6 months. But citizenship take approximately 2 years. I guess there are a lot of checks carried out about you in this process. The lodgment process, or what we call it as a submission, that is logging into ICA system and filing your application, also takes 2 hours because everything needs to be done manually. So you will have to type in each and every piece of information in that form, and obviously it takes long time. If you recall, if you have recently seen anybody's PR application, ICA gives a PDF file for preparing PR application. So a person can fill all the details in that and then upload that file to ICA portal where all that information is extracted and a pre-filled form is presented for review purpose to the applicant. Unfortunately, this process or this procedure is not available for citizenship application. You have to type in everything or cut and paste from somewhere, and that is the reason why it takes long time. And the last point is, as we believe, when you file this application, there are extensive background checks carried out on you. Because now you are getting admitted as a citizen. So you are going to be permanently tagged to Singapore. So your background needs to be checked properly. And obviously then documentation standards and everything goes up significantly. So at this point of time, I will like to highlight one point which is about our services. So we suggest that for citizenship, everyone should follow or everyone should engage a professional agent for filing and preparing their application. The primary reasons is that a good agent will carry out in-depth review of your profile. See, we already know that the approval rate is low, the process is complex, filing process itself takes long time, and then the approvals take very long time. So you do not want to really go wrong in this. There can be some small matters. If those are not handled properly, it might result into rejection of your application. And then again you wait for a long time and after that you receive rejection is not something that you will welcome. The agent will help you to do the in-depth review of your profile. We will go through your profile, identify all strong points, weak points, and decide a strategy of how we should present it for ICA consideration. A good agent will also carry out a detailed document check to ensure that there are no issues with the documents. This document check is normally even stricter compared to PR. The next thing, we will help you to prepare a cover letter or any other relevant document which will help you in your application. So obviously cover letter preparation is one of the important point. Now some people doubt whether cover letter helps or not and where do you submit. So in our experience, cover letter does help and there are ways to submit it. So we will recommend going for a cover letter. And the last thing we will do is we will also submit your application in the ICA system. So you will have to obviously log in using your SingPass. But because we do it in day in and day out basis, so our people are already experienced in submitting a citizenship application. So we can do it effortlessly for you. So in summary, I suggest engaging our services for citizenship application strongly. Now we have discussed about all prior to taking decision. Now your decision is taken, and now is the time to understand the schemes or eligibility schemes of citizenship. So this screen or this image I have copied from Singapore ICA website, and as you can see there are 5 different schemes under which you can apply for citizenship. The number one is you have been a Singapore permanent resident for at least 2 years and are age 21 and above, and you can apply with your spouse and unmarried children below age 21 which are born either in the context of a legal marriage or legally adopted by you. So this is the most common scheme. This is a scheme where many foreigners who obtain PR now apply for citizenship. So when you are applying, obviously you are working somewhere in Singapore or you are running your business, you can include your spouse and your children in the application and you can submit it. The next scheme, point number 2, is you have been a PR for at least 2 years and have been married to a Singapore citizen for at least 2 years. So this is a family sponsorship scheme where a person who has married a Singapore citizen can apply for citizenship, but that person must be PR at least for 2 years and the marriage should be valid at least for 2 years. The next scheme is for again family sponsor, but it is for children. That is point number 3, that you are unmarried child, age below 21 years, born within a context of legal marriage or has been legally adopted by a Singapore citizen. Now if you are very attentive about these first 3 points, you will realize slight difference here. And the difference is the unmarried child which intends to apply for citizenship need not be a PR. If an adult is applying for citizenship, he must be a PR for at least 2 years. So if you go back to number 1, where a family is applying, both husband and spouse must be a PR for 2 years, but their children need not be a PR. In second case also, when a spouse is applying, the spouse must be a PR for 2 years. But this requirement of being a PR before applying citizenship does not apply for unmarried children. They can directly apply for Singapore citizenship on the basis of their parents' sponsorship. Now we move on to the point 4, which is for students. So if you are a student who is on a PR, now here again PR is required, and you have been residing or living in Singapore for more than 3 years, out of which at least 1 year is on PR, and if you have passed at least one national level examination, that is PSLE, GCE, NOA level, or are in integrated program, then you can apply for Singapore citizenship. Now since in this case there is no family sponsorship, again the requirement that the student must be a PR comes into play. So here I want to highlight one more point, that some families where the entire family is PR and the children are going to local stream, obviously they have passed PSLE NOA level, they can apply for citizenship without involving their parent under this scheme. So if your family situation is where you do not want to apply for citizenship but your children want to, you can think of this point 4. And the last scheme is you are an age parent of Singapore citizen and you are already a PR, then you can apply for citizenship. This is a scheme where very few people apply because normally at that age, whether you are a PR or citizen doesn't really matter much. But yeah, I have seen some people applying under this scheme also. So I hope this has given you a good idea about which schemes are there. So there are no other schemes in Singapore to apply for citizenship. Sometimes people call us and ask us that I am ready to invest maybe $5 or $10 million. Can I get citizenship fast? So the answer is no. You can possibly go for GIP program if you satisfy those requirements, but then what you will get is only a permanent residency. Let's move on to the next slide now, and we will talk here of documents required for filing the application. So the minimum document those are required for the main applicant are passport copy, your permanent residency NRIC copy, birth certificate, marriage certificate, your educational certificates plus transcript copies, your 6 months payslip, your letter of employment confirmation, last 3 years notice of assessment, any previous testimonials from employment. If you are in business, then your ACRA biz profile, profit and loss account and balance sheet of the business, latest one, will also be required. Now, in addition to this, we also recommend some additional documents like cover letter, testimonials from your local friends and relatives, maybe some kind of donations, charities, voluntary service certificates, but that we can advise you if you decide to engage our services. If yours is a family application and if spouse is also included in the application, then the same documents will be required for your spouse also. Obviously, if spouse is not working and is a homemaker, then in that case, this payslip, employment letters, and previous testimonials are not applicable. But otherwise, the set of requirement is exactly same. For children, the documents required are quite less. You need to only present passport copy, foreign identification number copy or NRIC copy, or it is quite possible that your children do not have anything, like they are already in home country. I already mentioned that children can apply for citizenship directly. So it is possible that they are not already PR. So depending upon their status, their ID copy will be required. Birth certificate copy is required. And if your children are slightly grown up and have passed any major examination like O level, A level, or maybe university they are doing, then those educational certificates will be required. Now keep it in mind that children only up to the age of 21 are included in the application. So you need to make sure that you file the application of children for citizenship along with you at least by the age of 20. You need to allow minimum 1 year to 18 months before their 21st birthday and file the application. In addition to this, for all the people, a record of all previous passports is required because ICA wants to check the background of all those passports. This is slightly different from any other visa or permanent residency application. Now let's talk about some pre-filing preparation. So you have decided to apply. You understand the scheme now under which you are applying. You also know what documents are required. And now you are going to start preparation. So I won't recommend you directly to log in onto the ICS system and start lodging the data. So I suggest few steps. The first step that you should do is based on the document list given. You should compile all the documents. Don't leave it to last moment where you are taking photographs and trying to save it in PDF and all that. So prepare the list, prepare the folders of each person on your computer, get the scanned copies of all required documents, ensure that their size and all those aspects are correct. The next thing is whatever documents you have compiled, go through those documents in detail and check if there are any errors. Errors do occur. Names do not match. On your educational certificate, the name might be different. So these kind of errors can be problematic. Some people tell me that I got PR with all these documents. So what can be the problem in that? But that's not the case because citizenship checks are more stringent. Remember, in case of PR, if something is found which is not correct, authorities always have a way to cancel your PR and send it back to your home country. There is no concept of cancellation of citizenship. they cannot send you back. So obviously the checks are stringent, and that is why you need to check for everything carefully. The next thing is to plan for translation, affidavit, statutory declaration if applicable in your case. Some people have some missing documents, or maybe the documents might be in some local language. So you need to then obtain these translations and affidavit for the purpose of filing. What kind of documents you require obviously depend upon what kind of problem is there. The next thing is have all original documents in your custody. So it is important when you go for finalization of your process, all the documents you will have to show to them. When you file, you only upload scanned copies. But then originals should be in your custody. Don't leave those in your home country and then just ask somebody to send you the copy or something like that. Ensure that you have done proper scanning. I notice that many people generally nowadays submit only the photograph taken by their phone camera. I don't generally recommend that, but if you want to do that, use a software or an app which takes proper scan from the photo. Submitting just a photo is normally not a best practice. And the last thing that I will suggest, use a word template to compile the lodgment information. So you will recall one of the points that I mentioned is the lodgment process itself is complex and tedious. It will take 2 hours, and all those details you should enter manually, that is type in into the ICA system. So it can become quite tedious. Imagine you are sitting in front of ICA system and then taking each person's passport and entering details. So the errors and problems can occur. So what we suggest is to use a word template. I'll show you what we use when we engage the customer. So this is the kind of word form that we use. So if you engage our services, this form we will give, and all these details you will have to fill in. So the benefit is that these details can be filled, can be checked by another person, and then at the time of filing, we just cut and paste or copy and paste into the application, thereby minimizing any errors. If you directly start entering the details and if you start typing, then the possibility of second check is generally very low. And I have seen errors do happen. People type something else when entering maybe birth certificate number or something like that. So try to avoid these kind of issues. So this application, this form or word file that you see is for one adult. So if there are two adults, that is husband and wife, you will have to fill this form 2 times. And for children, there is another form like this. So coming back to the presentation, these are the pre-filing preparations I suggest, which will improve the accuracy and reduce all the errors in your application. So let's move ahead. And now some common mistakes to avoid. So again, errors in documents that you have to avoid. You have to ensure that your documents are all error-free and acceptable as per ICA requirements. For example, sometimes people don't have birth certificate. So then they will just attach something else in its place. But that is not something is the right way. If the birth certificate is not available, then ICA has given guidance as to what other documents are acceptable. So you will have to make sure that you don't make these errors. Obviously, it is sometimes difficult to avoid errors because you are not expert in this field. So you do not know all these aspects that well. The next thing is to ensure is that before you file, you should do at least some kind of social contribution. That obviously improves your score, and the chances are improved a bit, if not significantly. So if you engage our services, we will be definitely recommending something on this. The next common mistake that people do is applying too early for citizenship. So citizenship, you have to wait at least for 2 years after becoming PR. Obviously, before that, you cannot apply because the ICA system will not allow you to lodge the application. They already have a check. But even after 2 years, I will generally recommend to wait for another year or two before you apply for citizenship application. The next common mistake is people submit minimum asked documents only. Now, in case of citizenship application, you also have an option to submit additional documents in support of your application. The check of the application is also quite extensive, and all these additional documents will be considered. So additional documents can be in terms of cover letter, your future plans, maybe some testimonials, your performances, awards, whatever enhances your personality and whatever shows the value that you bring as a member of the society is recommended. One more mistake I see is that sometimes people submit too many documents. So they know that you can add additional documents, but then submitting too many documents is also not a good idea. So when you have a lot of documents, optional documents that you can submit, you should take a critical look at it and only select those, maybe 5, 10, which are most relevant and bring the value. For example, you were just given some increment in one specific year, is not really a relevant document. Or possibly you participated in some drama in a casual setting, that may not be really a relevant document. And the last thing that you should do, you should include a cover letter. Don't leave it out. Cover letter gives you an opportunity to summarize what your plans are, what you have done, how you can bring value to Singapore, and you can add it along with your citizenship application. So now comes the actual day of filing, and the process comes as follows. So you will log into the ESC system, the ICA system using your SingPass. Then you will start lodging all the details for the purpose of application. After lodgement of details, you will be required to upload all the documents in 7 days. You will have to sign some declarations electronically. And if your application is family application, then your spouse will also have to separately log in and sign those declarations. And then you will have to obviously pay the prescribed fee, and the application is done. I won't be able to show it because I cannot show the part of ICA system on how to do lodgement myself. But I think you can figure it out. Few days after the lodgement, you can start checking the status. Now, if you have already compiled all the details, maybe in the Word document, then you can complete this form and upload of all documents in single session, which will last approximately 2 hours. But if you are doing it part by part directly into the system, thinking and getting a document, let's say passport, and entering passport number, then getting the previous passports and entering previous passport numbers, then it can take quite long. It may span over a couple of days also, because you might fill up the details, save it, then again come back, complete it, and so on. So once you have filed, it is a wait of 18 months to 27 months for you. As I have said, the average processing time is 2 years. So enjoy this wait and hope you will get the citizenship approval. Now let's move ahead and try to understand what factors typically authorities consider for approval of each application. So there are a lot of factors that play into this, and how all these factors are evaluated or what weightage is given is not disclosed by ICA. This is government, what I can say, secret, which is quite okay, which is understandable. But the factors that you can understand from this slide are like this. I won't read everything. If you want, you can pause and go through. But the key factors are your age, family ties, your industry, job scope, salary, educational level, and your family composition and what they are doing, financial position, and some other factors which are listed here. So all these factors will come into play, and that is the reason why you will find that the families or people who get citizenship approval are not all alike. You will find somebody working in a high corporate sector getting approval. At the same time, somebody who is working in some, kind of a average job will also get the approval. And the reason why varied people or the people with varied background get approval is because of so many factors. So, in general, what immigration authorities are assessing in evaluating your citizenship application is your capabilities. Are you capable and are able to stay in Singapore and generate a value? The next point is, are you committed to Singapore? For example, you might be extremely capable. You are running your own company in fintech, but the chances are high that you may not stay in Singapore for a long period of time. Maybe after a few years, you will go to another country. So, in that case, it doesn't make any sense to give you citizenship. If they give you Singapore citizenship and if you and your entire family go and then settle in USA, then that place is lost. That family, that those children, they are not part of Singapore in future. So are you likely to sink roots here? That is one of the key questions that always authorities will like to assess. And is your next generation likely to continue settling here? Because immigration is always about getting somebody to settle in the country and getting his next generation to really integrate with the society. In general, the first generation migrants, they don't really integrate that well because they have their history and their background in some other country. But generally, what immigration principle states is that it is really about the next generation to settle into the society. Now, here is a brief note on citizenship quotas. So, since 2010, ICA has generally decided to release 20,000 places for citizenship every year. Now, these quotas may further be divided into subcategories like different industry, age group, or even ethnicities. We don't know how that quota is broken. But every year, 20,000 will be released. And since this number is small, you have to be careful and make all the possible efforts to put your best application forward. Now here I will like to quote one example of another country. You take case of Canada and Australia. They also run a properly administered immigration program and they take huge number of people every year. For example, Canada takes 400,000 people as permanent residents and Australia takes close to 200,000. And all these people eventually become citizens. But the basic difference of Singapore compared to these countries is that Singapore is a small country. You can't accept that kind of huge numbers in Singapore. That will break down the entire population dynamics in Singapore. Local people will be having concerns about that. That is the reason why Singapore has fixed on this number, 20,000 per year. Okay, so now we come to another important point, that is post-approval process. So the part that I am highlighting here on the left hand side, which I have covered with gray color, overlap, is what we did up to now. That is submitted the application with supporting documents online. Now after this and after the wait, you have got the approval. So once you have got the approval, you will get an approval in principle. And there is some bit of process involved over here to get the citizenship. So in stage 2, you have to do 3 things. First thing is that you have to do an online e-journey. So there is an online course which you will have to log in using your SingPass and you will have to complete this e-journey. Children below 16 years of old age are exempted from this stage. Everybody else will have to do this e-journey, which typically takes, I guess, 3 to 4 hours, or you can do it separately, meaning there are separate small courses in that. The second part you have to do is that you have to attend to a in-person session in a community club. So there are already some community clubs listed where you have to go on a specific day. I think it is one session of 3 or 4 hours. So that you have to complete. And the third thing that you have to do is you have to start preparing for renunciation of your existing citizenship. Because Singapore citizenship will be given to you only when you have renounced your previous citizenship. So there can be some prerequisite for you to do that. Maybe you have some legal obligations depending upon your country of origin. So you will have to ensure that all those problems are settled. So this is stage 2. Now once you have done first two things, that is you have completed the community session and you have completed the e-journey, the system will automatically issue you a final approval of Singapore citizenship. Now we will move on to stage 3. That is, you have to download that final approval and then you have to go to the embassy of the country from which you come. For example, let's say that you are from India. Then you will go to Indian High Commission and you will submit the application for renunciation of current citizenship, that is Indian citizenship, and to which you will attach this final approval letter from Singapore ICA. Once you submit your application, you will have to also submit your passport. The embassy will cancel that passport, will give you a renunciation certificate, and that certificate means your previous citizenship is cancelled, essentially. And now you have to proceed to ICA for registering your citizenship. Now in this in-between period, from the date on which your previous citizenship is cancelled till the time your new citizenship is registered, you are a stateless person. So you have to be a bit careful as to not have any kind of travel plans, because once you renounce your previous citizenship till you get Singapore passport, you cannot technically travel. Now legally there are ways in which to travel in case there are emergencies or anything like that. But generally don't plan any travel in this period. So once you have renounced your previous citizenship, then you will book a slot in ICA building for registration of citizenship. And you have to check the slots when it is available. You have to go there and complete the process. When you do this process, at that time you will have to take an oath of. Now when you complete the process, you will have to take the oath over there in front of Commissioner of Oaths, saying that you are loyal, you will be loyal to Singapore and any previous loyalties you give up. Once you finish this process, on the same day you will be issued a paper IC, in the sense your new IC, pink IC, but which is on the paper, which is for the temporary purpose. So there will be a photograph on it and some stamp. And from that point onwards, you have become citizen of Singapore. You can immediately lodge in for your Singapore passport. That you can do it from home after you come back after getting this temporary IC. And then passport will be ready maybe in 1 week or 2 weeks depending upon the processing time. So you will get passport immediately after this within 1-2 weeks time. And this stage 3 is over here. Now we move on to the stage 4. So the actual IC, the pink IC that you will get will be given to you in a citizenship ceremony along with the citizenship certificate. And this ceremony can happen anytime 3 to 6 months after you are obtaining citizenship, because these sessions are very limited. So there will be one session in 1 quarter in west of Singapore, that is Jurong area. Maybe another session in another quarter in maybe central area. So like that it happens. So in that ceremony, you will be given your card and citizenship certificate. And with this, the entire process is over. So let's move on to the next slide. And what happens in case of rejection? So obviously, as you have seen, rejections are more common than the approvals, because the approval rate is only 18%. So in case your application is rejected, you can file one appeal. But keep it in mind, appeal makes sense only when there are significant factors to reconsider the decision. Because in this case, ICA has decided to reject the citizenship and you are asking them to overthrow that decision and grant you the citizenship. So you should make an appeal if you can justify that. Or the other option is to reapply after 6 months. So with this, I have covered all majority aspects of citizenship application in Singapore. I hope you find this quite interesting and knowledge sharing. In case you are interested in engaging our services, feel free to contact us at our office number or from any contact us form on our website.